For the first panel, Power Pulse, please welcome our panelists. Antonio Bartoli, Ambassador of Italy to India. Since taking the role in 2024, he has focused on strengthening economic, technological and strategic cooperation between Italy and India. High Commissioner of Sri Lanka to India, Maheshini Kolon. During her career of over 25 years, she has served at Sri Lanka's permanent mission to the United Nations in New York and as Deputy High Commissioner in India. Simon Wong, High Commissioner of Singapore to India. He was Singapore's trade representative to Taiwan from July 2015 to January 2020. And prior to that, served as Deputy Secretary International from August 2012 to June 2015. Ambassador of Germany to India, Philipp Ackermann. He has also served as Director General for Africa, Latin America and West Asia at the Federal Foreign Office for 5 years.
A huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for our panelists this morning. Extremely interesting conversation that my colleague Siddhant Sibbal will have with our esteemed guest. Siddhant?
Well, our world is changing very fast, almost on a daily basis. The conflict is impacting us, and it's impacting deep in terms of the war inflation, in terms of the West Asia war, whether it is the war in Europe. We have a big panel representing almost all parts of the world, at least the Eurasian part of the world, Europe, Asia, and we'll get a perspective about the situation. Let's start with the Sri Lankan High Commissioner, ma'am. My first question to you is, what's the view from Sri Lanka about the West Asia war? It looks like the war has reached the shores of Sri Lanka. We saw the warship Dana being sunken by the Americans. I know your foreign minister has already reacted to the developments, but if you can perhaps share your perspective about the situation on the ground.
So where the ship was concerned, it was sunk off the coast of Sri Lanka in international waters, and Sri Lanka did what it had to do according to the laws of the sea as well as laws of war, which we abide by. So when there was a distress call, the Navy and the Air Force were mobilized, and we rescued the survivors, and we managed to also salvage human remains, which have since been repatriated. So that's what we did. We did what we had to do, because although it sank in international waters, this was in Sri Lanka's search and rescue region. Where the war is concerned, what is actually far more concerning for us is what's happening in West Asia now and the Strait of Hormuz, and what the instability that is causing in terms of energy, in terms of the fuel prices going up, in terms of Sri Lankan workers in the region, and so on, and in the impact on the economy.
From South Asia, let's go to Europe, to the German ambassador. We have seen the comments of the German Chancellor. He's clearly said that he's not going to join any initiative, perhaps led by the US President when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz. What's the view from Germany about this war? I know already Germany is facing the war, the repercussions of the war in Ukraine. How does the West Asia war impacts Germany, and what's your view about the situation in Strait of Hormuz?
So I think it's fair to say that it concerns us all, this war. It has, and Mohishini just said it, you know, it has an impact on all our countries, and it has a strong impact on Germany. I will give you two reasons. One is the rise of fuel prices. So every citizen of Germany now is confronted with the fact that fuel has become much more expensive. And we see also what we have experienced in the last couple of years, in the last 10, 12 years, that there is, you know, what happens in Lebanon. One part of this war, there is, of course, the danger that a new refugee movement will come up, which we are very, very concerned about. Germany is, for the first time in a long time now, gets a little growth. We are expecting a 1% growth this year. even more maybe, but this war really prevents us from growing in the way we should grow. So I think it's fair to say that we are hugely concerned about this war. We hope it will end rather sooner than later, and we see with great concern that it has become sort of a regional, not maybe completely international, but a regional war that many countries somehow are suffering of, and between Lebanon and Kuwait and the UAE, Saudi, Iran. So it's a very, very dire and concerning situation, I would say.
From Europe, going back to Asia, to the Singapore High Commissioner, your country is sitting right at the crossroads of global trade. Have you seen a decrease or perhaps impact on the global trade? And also, as a country which is basically based on trade globally, how has the tariffs, Donald Trump's tariffs, perhaps impacted you?
I mean, since COVID, we had one battle after another. We had Ukraine, we had the war now in Iran, we had Liberation Day, the day after April Fool's Day. Your conclave is called World Pulse. For Singapore, a small trading nation, we prefer to see global scenarios that are normal, having a human level pause. But these days, we are being electrically shocked. Sometimes I feel we are in a geopolitical Squid Game. If you watch the Korean movie, Squid Game, we see many new challenges waking up in a day that we are not in control of. To answer your question, yes, we are seeing price shocks right now because of the situation in the Middle East. Petroleum prices have gone up, gas prices have gone up. We are trying to mitigate some of this. Like what my colleagues have said, we hope that the war will go off-ramp very soon. If not, we will get not only price shocks, we will get supply shocks. Yeah.
Price shocks and supply shocks. Going back to Europe, to the Italian ambassador, do you see the IMEC, the India, Middle East, Europe corridor essentially being dead? Because it was already suffering because of the conflict, the war in Gaza. It was announced here in Delhi, but it looks like not much activity has taken place.
Yeah, it may sound as a paradox, but I think it's even more necessary to have not a single corridor, but a network of options. And so diversify. I mean, we share the same interests, the Gulf and India, in stability, in freedom of navigation, in trade. Italy is the fourth global exporter, so it's naturally interested in stability, security, and freedom of navigation. And as it always been said, when there is trade, there are less cannons. And so, yes, we think that is necessary. Is a visionary project. That doesn't mean unrealistic. Yesterday, we held a meeting with our private sector. There were more than 300 companies, showing and highlighting the opportunities in sectors such as infrastructure, digital. We are posing the underwater cable between India and Italy, the high-speed highway, and energy. So the response is yes. And in general, about Hormuz, I think we didn't want this war. We are not participating. We will not. We would like to see a return to diplomatic effort. We did our fair share, hosting even 2 rounds in Rome of the nuclear negotiations. Then it went otherwise, but we are confident that that a more reasonable approach can be recuperated. And as far as Hormuz is concerned, I mean, let me push the rewind button. 500 years before BCE, there was the Greek alliance defeated the Persian Empire. Xerxes, Themistocles defeated Xerxes in Salamis, in the Battle of Salamis. We don't want a reverse Salamis battle, so there are no conditions to do that now. There is the readiness of Europe to enhance the Aspides mission to make sure that the other passages, like the Red Sea, can be preserved as alternatives.
Going back to Sri Lanka, High Commissioner, ma'am, your country has faced the direct challenges emerging out of conflicts, COVID. We saw the protests, something that was covered globally, not just here in India. What's the situation now in Sri Lanka? Has there been a stabilization? And also, do you fear that because of the conflict, the war in West Asia, the gains that your leadership has made, perhaps there is a concern that those gains can be reversed?
So, as everyone knows, Sri Lanka is a developing island nation in the Indian Ocean. So the ocean, shipping lanes, ports, airports, those are our lifelines. So when they're being affected and disrupted, naturally we have concerns. You mentioned a series of crises that Sri Lanka has faced. There was the economic crisis in 2022, as you mentioned, and then there was also the cyclone Ditwa that we faced in November last year. But despite all that, our economy was stabilizing. We had actually surpassed some of our customs and revenue targets. We had done very well in our fiscal management policies, and the new government was elected on a platform of transparency, accountability, and good governance. And people had certain expectations from them, and those expectations were being met despite Cyclone Ditwa. But people are also anxious because of the series of crises that they have faced. So the government at the moment is working with Sri Lanka's partners, the international partners, and we had actually started putting in place the frameworks and for sustainable development and so on. So we are managing okay at the moment. The structures that we had started to put in place for resilience systems and so on are helping us, definitely. But since we were struck by Cyclone Ditwa and now this, which is an external shock which we have no control over, there are concerns. So the government has this additional task of allaying the fears of people, because we have already introduced fuel rationing, and we have introduced a 4-day work week, and we have urged the private sector to also consider adhering to a 4-day work week. So we've had to put in place systems like this, and we have to also plan for unforeseen circumstances, because we don't quite know how this situation will evolve. So there are these concerns, but the government is taking steps. The government is aware. The government, even last night, the president addressed the nation and addressed questions from the public as well. So they're putting in place various steps, and we hope that this war, again, as everyone on the panel expressed, would not last long, because I don't know how we would be able to sustain in the future, because everyone is being affected, including India, which has always been our closest partner and our first responder, and the country that has stood by us in times of crisis.
To the German ambassador, Dr. Philipp Ackermann, do you think that Germany will have to do more heavy lifting now at a time when it looks like the United States is essentially withdrawing from the world? And do you think that Germany and India, the relationship can play an important role in preserving that stability across the world?
So, first of all, I think what is of utmost importance to us in Germany is that Europe stands united in this very difficult situation. Germany alone, we are a country of the size of Tamil Nadu, that's what I'm saying normally. So I don't see us really heavy lifting alone, but we are in the privileged situation to be geographically and institutionally in a framework, in a network that allows us to do heavy lifting. And the European Union, with its 450 million inhabitants, is for us a wonderful vehicle to make our voice heard. And you've seen what European Union said, and many countries said concerning the request of President Trump. We have said very clearly that's not our war, and we will not participate in this war. And it is also a voice of unity in a way. You should not forget that we in Europe have a war in front of our door, and this is also something that concerns us a lot. We have a war of aggression by Russia in Ukraine, where every day hundreds of soldiers and civilians die, every day. And now, with the shift of attention towards other war, we tend to forget easily that there are crises in the world where public attention, diplomatic skills, and efforts to solve situations are urgently needed. I tend to believe that it is good not to overburden the international community, but to concentrate on those areas where really things can and have to be solved. Germany and India, I think, is a positive story, and Germany and India and Europe is a positive story. We have seen the FTA, a huge step in the right direction. I think it's for us hugely important, and Germany and other European countries will benefit as much as India will benefit from this FTA, and it shows that free trade is still on the agenda. We are against artificial tariffs imposing. We feel that free trade leads us in a tailor-made way, in a way that is acceptable for both sides, leads us to more prosperity and more trade interaction. And therefore, I think India is a fabulous partner for Europe and Germany right now.
The Singapore High Commissioner, Mr. Wong, you made an interesting point. You said that we are in a squid game. What's the end game of this squid game, if you can perhaps give your view? And also in terms of the India relationship, your assessment of the relationship, because it looks like the Singapore is India's best friend in Southeast Asia. Is it correct to characterize like that?
Well, to put it very selfishly, Singapore wants to be player 4, 5, 6, that we somehow survive this chaos. But to elaborate on some of the points that my fellow panelists and your question is, I think because of fragmentation and because of the challenges to free trade, rules of law, rules of engagement, countries around the world will coalesce into a coalition of willing, and they will want to preserve many of the global rules right now. I see two bright spots from a regional perspective and also from an inter-regional perspective. Like what my colleague Philip have said, I think the Europe-ASEAN FTA will be an important space to watch. And the next phase to watch is the Europe CPTPP coalition, which is the Comprehensive and Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership. I think with Europe and ASEAN, 450 million and 650 million in ASEAN is going to become one important player in stabilizing trades, tariffs, rules, and so on and so forth. And with CPTPP 12 and Europe 25, you're looking at 50% of the global trade, well, more or less of that. And beyond BRICS, I think these two inter-regional players will play a role on its own, because it's no longer in the US orbit, so to speak, and not in the Chinese orbit, so to speak. So I think the future is very bright for these two organizations. And I think for watchers in this room, this is a space to watch. In the case of India, I think we are trusted partners of India. We have just signed a comprehensive strategic partnership last year. And I think being the largest investor of India of the tune of 160 billion US dollars, I think we have a role to play vis-a-vis our relationship with India. We are looking at key sectors which are very, very relevant to us right now. The production of green energy and the eventual export of green energy from India to our part of the world. And then we have this semiconductor and electronics space, which I think India will do very, very well. And we are well entrenched, and we want to participate in this space. Thank you.
To the Italian ambassador, so how do you see India-Italy relationship going forward at this time when the world is literally falling apart? Because we have seen positive developments in the relationship. But in terms of the challenges globally, how can this relationship form that important relationship that others can see and say that we would like to have this kind of relationship between two countries, India and Italy?
Let me say more in general with Europe. I think I agree that the partnership that we have just nailed down touches the main points: trade, security, that is a precondition, mobility, that is the exchanges not only of goods and data but also of human beings, and research and technology, that is the future. So I think that with the common thread that I think Europe can offer, that is stability and reliability and predictability, that is more and more rare in today's world. You know, we live in a world where we assist to a deterioration of the international order, with more and more unilateral initiatives. Frankly, the most blatant one was the aggression of Russia towards Ukraine. Russia, I remember, that is a member of the Security Council, the very body that should prevent this and be guarantor of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And this is this triggers this chain, and we are Europe and Asia. We are paying the price. For example, this war in Iran that we didn't initiate, and I think is an important wake up call also for Europe, because as everybody knows, we relied on three factors that are no more there: the security umbrella of the United States, the trade relationship, and raw materials from China, and the cheap energy from Russia. None of these factors is no more there, and so we have to accelerate for strategic autonomy of Europe, because if somebody else takes care of your security on whatever else, it's never for free. In these, Italy is of course one of the founders of Europe and wants to be protagonist in that. And I think that the relationship with India is a strategic relationship to build more and more resilient value chains based on, and this is not rhetoric, based on values. I mean, it's not marginal that we are democracies and And so after, especially after COVID, we are more and more talking about friendly shoring. And so this is at the heart of our strategy. And I think that the relationship with India in all these areas, and specifically maritime security, IMEC, with the boost of FTA, we have calculated that the value added of IMEC itself would be over 170 billion euro, and so we want to be part of this.
My final closing question, and this is a generic question to all of you. The question is basically, at a time when trust globally is a rare commodity, when essentially the world is falling apart almost on a daily basis, we see crises, especially on social media by the US president, who of course, when we wake up here in Asia, we have a new crisis to deal with. How each of your country is dealing with the upcoming crisis? Is there any strategy, or is it something that you're dealing on a minute-to-minute basis, or perhaps on minute-to-minute truth social basis? So starting with you, Your Excellency, and then we'll go.
Well, where you asked about trust, right? So for countries like Sri Lanka, the rules-based order is very important. And when the rules-based order is challenged, then obviously we have to find our way. We have to be pragmatic. We don't have the luxury of excluding countries. All our partnerships are equally important to us. And so you mentioned about minute to minute. We just don't know what the next moment holds. So we work very closely with all our partners, including India, especially India. And yes, we do have to keep strategizing from moment to moment. Yeah.
German Ambassador?
If you want to be up to date, you just better subscribe to Siddhan Sibbal's news by WION. This is something which is even quicker than Truth Social, I guess. Yes, on a serious note, yes, of course, we need to be, following everything that happens instantaneously, very, very carefully and thoroughly. I think we're getting used to that. We're getting used to the speed. It is maybe we have become quicker and we have become more active in our reaction. Is it a strategy? It's more a skill, I would say. It's a more skill to cope with all that is on the market, on all the networks. But I think generally speaking, we live in a very unruly time, and the end is not, the outcome, the off-ramp is not very clear. So we have to prepare for even worse crises, I'm sorry to say. And therefore, our strategy is build up trustworthy and reliable partnerships. And we in Europe, we have over the last almost 80 years, we have built a very trustworthy and reliable partnership with the 27 members of the EU. And I think we know how to build these partnerships, and that's where I'm very optimistic or positive, is that we can build these partnerships also with partners outside the EU, and India is one of them. But I think, Simon, you are completely right. The ASEAN CPTPP region is also one of them, and I think that's where we have to invest in, and that's where we have to make our efforts.
High Commissioner, sir.
Singapore is too small. We are a price taker. So we have to be sometimes very zen about all these pulsating challenges of the day. But as what my colleague, Dr. Ackerman, has said, we just need to build our own resilience. We need to be self-sufficient in terms of critical minerals and critical resources. And then we build partnership with like-minded countries. I think we are hopeful that perhaps after November there will be some change of mind in the larger scheme of things. There will be some kind of a pause, but as usual, the rhythms of the 3 a.m. tweets are sometimes very heart pulsating, but We are practitioners of many faiths. I myself is a practicing Buddhist. I take things in our stride, and I think we are very resilient countries all around, including India. We will get past this. Thank you.
So, closing remark?
I think we have to do exactly the opposite of the social media philosophy. I mean, not indulge in easy emotions, in slogans, in superficial assessments, and then change continuously, but aim at the main ingredients that we have all mentioned: trust, reliable and resilient value chains, and relationship with friendly countries, and restore some of the international rules-based order, but not as a ideal, unattainable, but as a concrete reality that we all have to contribute to build, starting from European Union. And I think that Europe, as I said, can be a very reliable and strong partner with which countries like India can deepen and develop a relationship. But this implies more effort, more direct relationship between bureaucracies, departments. I mean, we have to develop this dialogue living up to the ambition of the FTA and the strategic agenda. This is a serious strategy, not superficial emotions of tweets.
Well, on that note, thank you so much, High Commissioners and Ambassadors, for speaking to WION and giving us your perspective about how the situation is evolving and how your countries are dealing with it. Thank you so much, sir and ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Just a quick question to the Italian ambassador. Sir, you said social media tweets shouldn't be the way forward, but isn't it better that we have all the information through all of these social media posts in that emotional outrage, and then we can plan accordingly?
I'm not, there was this Luddites movement that destroyed machinery during the Industrial Revolution. I'm not some of those. I'm not appealing against. I'm saying that social media shouldn't orientate and shape the public discourse. Of course, it's a valuable source of information, but we shouldn't. Now we are called the leaders are called leaders and are not followers. So should shape the public discourse without being trained by that.
Well, that's the irony of our times. Social media is used to influence views and opinions, and it is now being used for international guidelines and diplomacy as well. But thank you very much to all of you for joining us and having this candid conversation. I request Managing Editor WION, Mr. Rabin Sharma, to please come up on stage and present our panelists, our guests, with a token of appreciation. Can we have a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen? It's been a pleasure having them here among us and understanding their perspective of what has been happening all around us, the geopolitics of our times, the geoeconomics of our times, and what way the world now might move ahead. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. They've been honest, they've been candid, they have been kind to answer all our questions and give us a perspective of what each country thinks. Thank you so much.